And welcome once again to another episode of the HoriZone Roundtable. As always, I am Bob McDonald, the Cleveland State columnist at More Than a Fan Cleveland. You can catch me at cleveland.morethanafan.net. And as always, with me, I have Jimmy Lemke from Panther U.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
And as always, you can definitely catch us on fourlights.fm, and you can catch us on iTunes and tune in, and we're on Stitcher now. So whatever you're using, just whatever app you're using, we're there.
We had a lot of demand for Stitcher, I guess. People were really looking for us on Stitcher, so we got on Stitcher.
And we're on SoundCloud. We are actually in demand on SoundCloud, so at least we got that going for us.
We're building subscribers. We're technically still only a week into this.
This is true.
Episode 3 is being recorded, episode 3 is being recorded. Today was the 17th, just a day after, or just a week after episode 1 and 2 were recorded. So
yeah, we had a big. For those of you just joining us, obviously we had the big supersized double episode week this week. We had so much talk about the good discussion between about the Metro series that we just had to create a standalone episode for it. So that's what we got. So I'm sure that will probably happen in here, but we'll probably
Eric Jones and Nick for coming on and doing that with us again.
Absolutely. Great discussion between the two. Absolutely.
We were expecting it to devolve into just a pie throwing contest, but not so much. We have a pretty great talk about basketball, and
it was a really good discussion. Yeah, it really was. Yeah. Before we get into everything that we're going to be talking about today, we got to start off with some sad news. As many of you know, Andrew Smith, the former Butler player, he passed away earlier this week. So obviously our condolences to the Smith family. I know Butler is no longer in the HoriZone League, but it's a loss. So
they're still family to us. All the Marquette people. When they added Butler to the conference, I had a lot of Marquette fans coming to me like, "What should we expect out of Butler?" And I said, "You expect a program full of a lot of people who understand how to make it work. They're great people from top to bottom at Butler University, and for them to have to go through this, it sucks." I only got to meet Andrew Smith in passing a couple times. He was a very nice guy both times, obviously. But I think what I'll remember most about Andrew is that he personified everything that they built there as far as the Butler way is concerned. This is a guy who really played hard-nosed defense, just always practiced his shot and hit shots that I just hated that he would be able to hit because – I always didn't think it was talent, but it wasn't talent so much as it was practice and perseverance and experience. And, to lose a guy like that, it's just, you hate it. You hate it for his family. You hate it for Samantha, his wife. I've been following the blog since she started writing it last year, and it's just, it's too bad, but life goes on. It's something that you just have to deal with. Loss is part of life, and I feel bad that it had to happen to such a great guy, but I'm glad that I got a chance. I had the pleasure of watching him play for so long, and I'm sure you did. You were happy to have seen him play several big battles with Cleveland State and with us. I mean, it's just losing Andrew kind of reminds me personally of kind of the this I don't know, it's kind of like a family, these HoriZone League people, where there's a lot of us that there's not a lot of us, probably you can add all of the fan bases of all the 12 schools that have called the HoriZone League home in the last 8 years or 5 years even, and probably wouldn't even come close to some kind of Big Ten-sized fan base at like Ohio State or Michigan. But together, we're all very passionate about our teams, and we're all passionate about the conference. And I'm glad that we were able to experience the time that we had with him. And, it was a lot less than, the people that love him the most, and his family and friends, teammates, Coach Stevens and Matt Graves, and, the whole Butler program. So from us to you guys, our condolences. And, I personally just wanted to say that it was a privilege to be able to experience Andrew Smith, the basketball player, for as long as I did.
Well said. Well said. I don't think we need to say. I mean, that's you pretty much said it all right there.
Thanks.
Yeah. And so on that somber note, we continue on, as they say, with the games that we play.
Yeah. Just one little thing. Mm-hmm. I would say that if you can, please give to your charity of choice for cancer research. I gave to the MAC Fund this week after that, and the Midwest Athletes Against Childhood Cancer. We actually in my neighborhood do something called Candy Cane Lane, where we put Christmas lights up. People drive through and we collect donations for childhood cancer research. So make sure that if you give what you can at some point, just so we can get rid of this, because between Andrew Smith and then outside world, you have David Bowie and Alan Rickman, and all these people are just
and Lemmy.
And Lemmy. I mean, cancer sucks. It's just the worst, and we need to do what we can to just get rid of this crap. I'm so tired of seeing good people, leave us far too soon because of something that we should be, sinking every last dollar into to try and see if we can research a fix.
Yeah.
So
basketball. So basketball. Let's move on. The big news this week was the opening win, the first ever conference win for Northern Kentucky. So
it's very cool that Northern Kentucky being the brand new team in this conference. I was happy to not be the team to lose to them, I guess is what I would say.
Yes, and the winner in that sweepstakes is, surprisingly enough, Youngstown State.
Youngstown State never disappoints. When you need a loss,
I guess
Youngstown State is there for you. They will do what they can to help you out.
And we talked about last week about when, how they had to change things up, and when exactly the other was there going to be another shoe drop with them, and it turns out it was Thursday, because the Northern Kentucky dominated that game. I mean, that was and they're not going to be a big. I mean, I know they're just getting into the conference. I know they're still a year away from officially being classified as Division I, because they're still on the provisional period. But man, they're not going to be an easy out for anybody, because they beat up on Youngstown pretty well, a bit well. They 84-64. And you're looking at a very young team. You're looking at a very young coach. Their coach is, I believe, 41 years old. I mean, he's just starting out.
Brennan is brand new. They got rid of the old coach. The former coach was something of he had a little bit of a reputation as far as recruiting is concerned. So
sure. Yeah.
Could be they were getting ready to be in Division I, where scrutiny is much more potent,
probably,
on the landscape. But John Brannon's there to win. He's not coming in to just put together, go through the motions. He's there to put together a team, and he's got pieces. I think we forget that while they are brand new, we think that maybe it'll take them a long time, but on the same token, I mean, even Valpo took a few years to really get it going in this conference. It was till 2010-11 where Valpo really kind of pushed forward and became the program that we had all thought they could be.
Yeah, I mean, and they're needless to say, they're on a steep learning curve, but it looks like they are acclimating a little faster than I thought they would. A lesson learned yesterday when Northern Kentucky played Cleveland State. And Cleveland State during certain stretches of that game had absolutely no answer for their 3-pointer, and they were pretty prolific yesterday. And if not for the fact that, but as a new team, obviously they're going to have some growing pains. They're going to have those kind of, sputtering times, as it were. They obviously didn't have that against Youngstown State. They won by 20, but Cleveland State, once they finally got around to clamping down on that defense that we're supposed to be seeing from Gary Waters' team all the time, they didn't really have an answer. And so now you have to think that at some point in time, they might figure it out, and kind of bite the Vikings at the Wolstein Center when they come for the return trip. But they're going to be a surprise. I think they're going to be a surprising team, and I don't think they're going to be the last place team now at this point.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty safe bet that your last place team is the team that we played yesterday, that Milwaukee dismantled, which is UIC.
Yeah, UIC
got a lot of problems.
Yeah, Steve McLean's gonna have his work cut out for him. He's got some talent out there, obviously, but it's gonna be a rebuilding. A major rebuilding for him. So I figure you're going to have to give him at least a couple of years.
What kind of so surprising to me, and I think that some fan bases should keep note of this, is, UIC was in the conference semifinals last year. Mm-hmm. So while they were definitely towards the bottom of the barrel as far as the talent that was in the conference, this was a team that was not a bad program whatsoever. They were definitely building. I mean, it took Hardmore a few years, but he got there. I mean, he was getting there. So I'm not so worried about UIC as much as maybe I should be.
I would have been more
as the head coach. It may have taken it. He may have just had a longer learning curve.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying, we're kind of learning on the fly here and seeing that maybe the grass isn't always greener on the other side, because as we look at it, UIC, they got rid of Howard Moore for a guy that they think is a better coach. But I mean, really, how much better can you expect to be? There's no learning curve for Steve McLean on being a basketball coach, because he's been the coach at Wyoming. Mm-hmm. So you always see things as better. Mm-hmm. Everybody, when he talks about getting rid of a coach, they always expect that the next coach is going to be better.
Yeah.
That we'll be able to hire a better coach next time. So we have the people over here, some of them call them Pearl Dead Enders. Mm-hmm. I think it's a pretty solid name, because you get people who just, they think that Jeter's not Pearl and he never will be. So we might as well give up and start with a new guy. And they always talk about it as if that next guy is going to come in and he's going to kill. And you never know that. Sometimes you're going to end up sometimes you'll end up with a guy like, obviously it's way too early to say about the Steve McLean era at UIC, but they were definitely having a much better year last year and a much better program than they are, this season. So maybe Howard Moore was about to get it going. Who knows? Just don't always expect that when you get rid of a coach, you're just going to go in and hire, the next John Wooden.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people always talk about like that's what's going to come through the pipeline.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you said is really true, because most recent examples you had, Youngstown State, they got rid of John Robich, replaced him with Jerry Slocum. Cleveland State got rid of Rolly Massimino, replaced him with Mike Garland. So you don't know what you're going to get. I will say this, to your point about kind of UIC being a little more intimidated by UIC than we should be at this point in time. You had UIC, the Flames. They actually they were in that Thursday game against Green Bay. So, there are going to be opportunities for them to surprise. There are going to be some opportunities, just like there were last year. It's just, like last year, I think it's just, they're just going to kind of come up a little short. And I think that's going to be I think that might be the overriding theme for McLean at this point.
Right. UIC, what's good about UIC is that they have the infrastructure to really succeed. So I mean, they've got the facilities.
Sure.
While the UIC Pavilion, in and of itself, the UIC Pavilion may not seem like it's such a great deal. The fact of the matter is that that UIC is very much a good facility. The pavilion's a great facility. They have the practice facility where the NBA actually runs its scouting combine.
Yes.
It's a big university that has 24,000 students. They're in Chicago, which, as we bring it up frequently, but there's still no team that's really accepted that role as the great program of Chicago.
No.
So there's still room to kind of take that mantle. So UIC's got they have the skeleton. They just have to, get the right coach, maybe get the right athletic director, put it together, and move forward from there. They've had the same AD for 20 years, Jim Schmidt. So it is possible that Schmidt's just not, the guy. But
could be. I
don't know. He interviewed to be our athletic director twice. So.
Well, that's not awkward.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, he actually, when we hired Amanda Braun in 2013 to be our AD, he was actually a finalist, and we brought him in. We brought him in, and he had to put together a whole package showing why he'd be a great AD for Milwaukee, and then just a few days later, he turns up that I'm gonna stay at UIC. So who knows if he just, whenever we have an AD opening, that he just brings it up to try and get him angle for some kind of extension or pay raise or something, or if he really was trying to get our job. We do know that when we had hired Rick Costello in 2011, not Jim Schmidt specifically, but somebody was a finalist, and somebody had been a finalist for that job and then dropped out for similar meetings before the finalists were announced. So it makes you wonder if somebody like that maybe had been trying to be the athletic director at Milwaukee a couple times.
Possibly.
It was implied to me that it wasn't the first time Jim Schmidt had tried to become our athletic director. So if I were you, if my conference rival in many ways, arch rival, is looking to if my AD is looking to move there, then I would, kick him to the curb and look at some of the fundraising that he's done. The baseball stadium's great, but is that the fundraising that he's done or the fundraising that the baseball coaches did to get Curtis Granderson to put up that money? I think it was the latter. So
I'm going to venture to guess it was too, because, Curtis Granderson, of course, he's still playing and he's doing.
It's just I think UIC's problem is administrative. They have an athletic director that's he's been there for 20 years. Granted, he's trying a lot of things. They added women's soccer a couple of years ago. That's good to try and take advantage of a sport that Chicago excels at, which is soccer. And I mean, definitely I think it's the Red Stars, the women's soccer team, the pro team, actually has some support in the South Side of Chicago. So having UIC over there, getting into that sport, maybe not the worst thing in the world, but I just don't see it. And Steve McLean is a hire that it doesn't he's been a head coach before. He's been a head coach in a bigger conference than the Horizon League. He was the head coach at Wyoming in the Mountain West. So it makes me wonder, is this like a second chance opportunity, or what is it really? I mean, Steve McLean definitely has somewhat of a reputation on the recruiting trail, but I was expecting him to have it fixed a little quicker, because they did have a really good recruiting class, despite the fact that he just came in. Yeah. And Dikembe Dixon, fantastic freshman basketball player.
Absolutely.
So I really is I don't know what's going on. Do they just not have the talent at all, or Steve McLean just not as good of an X's and O's coach as maybe they were hoping?
I think the big test is probably going to be on Monday when you got UIC going up against Cleveland State, because I think that's going to be, for him, I think that's going to be kind of the litmus test, really. Because you got two young teams going up against each other, and it's going to come down to, I really think it's going to come down to who exactly is going to step up, because you have on both sides, you have some really good freshmen. You got Dikembe Dixon on the UIC side. You have Rob Edwards on the Cleveland State side. I think it's going to come down to a lot of different things, and up to and including coaching. I mean, I think it's.
Speaking of programs where a lot of fans want to replace the head coach, how is Cleveland?
Yeah, you know what?
Gary Waters to be replaced?
It's gonna. I was openly wondering during the low points of the Northern Kentucky game yesterday, when exactly a GoFundMe page to buy out his contract was going to come up.
I don't know. He's already put together a GoFundMe page, because he would be the guy, right?
Probably, but Gary Waters is locked in until 2019. That's it.
2019.
2019.
He's 63 now, right?
He'll be 69. He will be 69 when the contract expires. So
he's about 66 now, 65.
Yes. Yeah.
That is quite up there. You may be kind of stuck with them for a while.
No. We are. I mean, you got to believe that any kind of the buyout is going to be somewhere in the $1 million range, I would think, if that was the case.
He's got like $350K a year, right?
Yeah, something like that. Ballpark. Plus incentives, obviously. But you're looking at a situation where he's going to get a pass this year. I already know that. I mean, the second that Anton Grady and Trey Lewis transferred out of this program, you knew he was going to get an instant pass. For whatever happened this season.
We being a couple of Milwaukee fans, and Paul Spicuzza, who we will definitely have on this show at some point. Paul and I were having a discussion about what would this conference be if, and we each had to pick three things about what each three schools where what if something had happened. We said, what would the conference be right now if Cleveland State hadn't lost Anton Grady and
Trey Lewis,
Anton Trey Lewis and Bryn Forbes too, which people seem to keep forgetting. Where would they be?
We keep reminding ourselves every damn time that we have a chance.
Yeah.
Every damn time.
Forbes, for one, Oakland would have beat Michigan State in that basketball game.
That's true.
Because Bryn Forbes was out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Cleveland State would be top 2, top 3 team at worst.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'd be talking about just a heck of a conference. Obviously, the other ones was what if instead of adding Northern Kentucky, we had subtracted Youngstown State. But I suppose I could make an entire season of podcasts where I talk about why we need to cut Youngstown State, but
it seems like that's going to be a running theme. So I'm just going to give you the benefit of the doubt on that one. But yeah,
podcast, the Roundtable, please cut Youngstown State from the conference.
Subtitle for the Roundtable podcast. Okay. But
I want to get on the air and say that at least once. Not, it doesn't have to be today, but I really want to just dive into why do we have this program in here. There's nothing wrong with Youngstown State. It's just they're not a fit for us. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, we can delve into it after the game next Sunday. Cleveland State and Youngstown State are going to play in the Q.
That game's going to be in the Q.
Yes.
Well, you're going to need to play that game in the Q because you obviously don't want to. You got an overflow crowd. You're going to need to.
Yeah. No, Jesus.
People for that game. That Cleveland's going to bring a bunch of people for that game. I mean, it's basically like a Cavaliers finals game. So you're going to want to make sure that you have the Q ready and available for that big rivalry.
Yes, the rivalry that I wish would be and is never has been. And that's pretty much it. To your point, and again, this is going to be the only time we talk about this because I am so bloody sick of hearing about, oh my God, we lost this guy, we lost that guy. Guys, come on, get the hell over it already. This is what you have right the fuck now. Okay? No, seriously. I'm so tired of listening to the freaking navel gazing about these two guys that left and the third guy who left last year. Okay, they're gone. End of fucking discussion. How about that? And and if you have a fan base that's going to say no way, well, these guys aren't here, then we're just going to go away. Okay, fine. So be it. Not the first time that's happened in the history of Cleveland State basketball. But this is the only time I'm going to address the what if. The only time. So make sure that you have that in there.
And if you're looking to think about what could have been at Cleveland State,
the only time. Here's what would have happened. Here's probably what would have happened if all three of these guys would have stayed. Valpo would still win the conference. That's it. You're probably and they'd probably still would be fighting for, they'd even be fighting for second place because I think Oakland probably would be fighting with them head to head, just based on that. All right. And so,
that's pretty
you look at it, you see, and with that in mind, you can see the reasoning behind it. I can see the reasoning behind it. I don't like it, but I see the reasoning behind it. Trey Lewis, he's going to Louisville. Of course, much bigger exposure, opportunity to play in front of large crowds, opportunity to play in the Big East. The ACC, my mistake. Sorry, Big East. But an opportunity to get the exposure he's not going to get at Cleveland State because Cleveland State can't even crack 2,000 freaking people a game, and didn't when he was there, and didn't when Anton was there.
I don't know.
Anton the same thing. I mean, you're looking at a solid program like Wichita State. Absolutely, you have two programs that no matter what, they are front runners to be in the NCAA tournament. Meanwhile, you have a Cleveland State team that is under no circumstances guaranteed anything.
Right.
And so, that's it. And then, and I don't want to say, and they graduated. They graduated. They finished their degrees. They are actually Cleveland State graduates. And so I wish them well. And that's it. I mean, but you get to the point where, we're 5-6 games into the conference season now. We're 4 or 5 games into the conference season already. All right. And at some point in time, you got to stop. I mean, we got to get to a point where we're seeing, we got to get past this eventually. because they're not coming back. The only time they're going to come back is probably to go see the game or potentially be on the coaching staff. Those are the only 2 times. That's it. There is no third option.
What bothers me about it is twofold. When fans take things so personally, and I used to do this because so this is probably partly me talking to younger Jimmy Lemke, but when you take transfers so personally, everybody has their own personal reason for doing it. And as you said, these kids did graduate. So you are knocking your own alumni. Whether or not they finished playing for you or not is, it's up to them. It's part of their lives and their decisions they have to make for themselves. So I don't know about exposure as much as playing a higher level of talent over a longer number of games, because if you have the talent, the scouts are going to find you. Whether you're talking European scouts or you're talking about NBA scouts, the scouts are going to find you. If you're good enough to be there, you're not going to get lost in the Horizon League. Obviously, Norris Cole went to the NCAA tournament once, had 2 games of the NCAA tournament. They still found him.
Yes, of course they did.
It's not that. It's not the exposure to me so much as maybe the level of talent. On the other side of the coin, what does it say to players you have currently on your roster? What does it say to a guy who's still around, who maybe has given a whole lot of personal time to playing basketball with the name of your school on his chest? A guy, pick any one of those guys that's still on that roster. And what does that say to them if you decide you're not going to renew your tickets because the Cleveland State lost some 5th-year transfer? Like, that's just it's to me, it's rude. It's rude, and you pretty much showing that it's not about being a fan so much as saying, having your input and having your 2 cents heard. It's not about the players. It's about you. So if you can't deal with a guy making a personal decision for himself like that, then maybe perhaps you shouldn't be a fan of Cleveland State basketball, because frankly, they don't need to have a guy like that. People who are willing to just throw the baby out with the bathwater anytime somebody decides that Cleveland State may not be the best decision for them. And it's one of the reasons I've loved Milwaukee, because we've had players transfer out with 3 years left of eligibility. We've had guys, there are a couple guys, just to bring up one, Roman Gentry played a year here and transferred and played his last 3 years of eligibility, or last 2 or 3 years of eligibility at he played them at South Dakota. And I still hear from Roman Gentry. I talk to him. He's still got, I talk to him. I know our players still talk to him. A lot of these guys, they're still around. He's still around. And that didn't change just because he decided that Milwaukee wasn't the best spot for him at the time. And it's good because you get guys that have graduated from other schools and they keep coming back. And that shows these players who are here that, look, it may have not worked out for them personally, but they love being here.
Mm-hmm.
They love being part of Milwaukee, part of that program. So you should see what they love.
Yeah.
What they're willing to be here afterwards, even though they didn't graduate from the university. So that's what I would say to the guys at Cleveland State who are getting on waters for,
well, I'll take it one step further. And this is, and this probably is more overriding of whatever the hell's going on with Cleveland sports in general. There is the argument, and it may be a valid one, that you get to a point where Cleveland State gets to, and they were at this point a couple of times last year, because remember the Cleveland State was in the first place. It was this close to hosting the Horizon League tournament, and they couldn't win the big game. And And the argument is, well, they couldn't win the big game. Why should we report them? Well, excuse me, you're the same damn town that roots for the Browns all the time. So what are we talking about here? I mean, what is the inherent difference between between Browns fandom and Cleveland State fandom? Seriously, what is the difference? The Browns are a dumpster fire. At least with Cleveland State, you have the off chance of having a winning season, and you have multiple years. So, I mean, you get to the point where you just, it's frustrating to me because you don't know, you have this fan base that kind of contracts and expands at will, it seems, and it contracts and expands basically based upon the win-loss record, which thanks, that's awesome. I mean, I think the best analogy I can make is pretty much that fandom and the Cleveland Indians, because they have the same problem. They have the same problem as it relates to people showing up to Progressive Field. I mean,
talking in terms of pro sports, I don't really like saying it because I think they're kind of two different worlds. But Cleveland State, just to talk about it in terms of other schools in that state, and the big one obviously is Ohio State. You know what separates Ohio State with Cleveland State? Yes.
Millions and millions of dollars.
$100 million budget, yes. Are we talking about a stadium that's filled with people? Yes. But what's going to separate Ohio State from these people is, look at what's going on with Ohio State basketball. They're having somewhat of a down year.
I just like to point out that Maryland is a common opponent for both Cleveland State and Ohio State, by the way. Cleveland State, I believe, lost by about 18, I believe, was the final score. Ohio State lost to them 100 to 65 yesterday. They lost by 35 points.
And so, it could have been much worse, too.
The worst loss in the Thad Matta era, I might add.
Yeah, and one game doesn't show. I'm sure that if Cleveland State and Ohio State played on a neutral floor, that we would have our Vikings would have a difficult time winning that game.
Well, they're having a difficult time winning a lot of games this year, so maybe this year isn't the best example.
The reason I bring up Ohio State is because what makes Ohio State different from Cleveland is that even when things are rough, people don't abandon them. And yes, you're talking about more people, but you can't build a fan base if the second going gets tough, the weak jump off. The tough get going, yes, but the tough get going with the program. Cleveland State is never going to grow as a program if people like, well, I'm not going to call anybody out by name, but if people decide to make a big deal out of not renewing season tickets, or we have so few season ticket holders that when you have somebody openly bail on their season tickets and everybody knows about it, that we have that few of them is also kind of saddening. I mean, that's it's unfortunate. But what I want to bring up, and I'm talking about John Durda specifically, and that about other people.
Sorry, John, you knew this was going to happen, bro.
I know you're a fan. You still pay attention. You still go to games.
He actually went to the Northern Kentucky game, as it turns out.
The problem with and he sent me a picture of how beautiful their arena is, which it is. But I wanted to say there's nothing he could have done for the growth of the Cleveland State program. There's nothing that John Durda specifically could have done that would have been worse than what he did do, which was show everybody in the world who knows John Durda, which I'm sure there are plenty of people who know who John Durda is.
And if you don't, he probably has liked a tweet of yours at one point in time in your life.
At one point in time. Try like every point in time I've ever tweeted anything whatsoever. I got a John Durda favorite and now like. on Twitter. But
I told him not to do that. I
you know,
blocked him because he kept doing that. I blocked him once for doing that. He doesn't like any of my stuff anymore for good reason.
When Mr. Prockville in Cleveland decides that he's not going to renew his season tickets as some gesture to the university that some things need to be done. What things are you talking about? Do you want a guy that you want Waters to recruit players that wouldn't consider transferring for a fifth year? Because then you're talking about dropping the level of talent of the player. Number one. Or are you saying that you want them to fire Waters? You know, those are things that you're saying to Cleveland State, but what are you saying to the people who know you? You know, there are a lot of people who know who I am around Milwaukee. Like, and I'm not tooting my horn. I'm not saying that I'm famous in any way. I'm saying I have a lot of friends and a lot of family, and I've crossed a lot of groups of people in the area, and I'm somewhat of a huge ego and a larger than life kind of personality and with a booming voice, and I'm just a giant dude. So a lot of people know me. What would it say if I didn't renew my season tickets with Milwaukee because I have something with Rob Jeter, or I think the university, needs to do this or needs to do that? What does that say? It doesn't say anything about it. Doesn't put any pressure on the program, because at the end of the day, Rob Jeter still has this contract.
Mm-hmm. As is Gary Waters.
I'm very much a Rob Jeter guy, so don't ever expect me to be like a guy who
no, of course not.
Well, my point is that all you're doing is saying to all the people that know you that are not Cleveland State people, all it does is say Cleveland State's so unimportant that somebody who is recognized as the super fan.
Oh God! And you know what? That's another damn thing. Unbelievable. No. I mean, I got to interject on that one because, come on. I mean, super fan. Come on. I've heard that word abused enough already.
It's like I said, was it last week or last month? I said the superfan moniker would be attached to Phil if Phil was John's size and had his. Phil
is infinitely more low key. I'm pretty sure Phil. I'm pretty sure Phil's blocked me already. I don't know. But.
Phil is one of my favorite people on social media because whether it's on Facebook or Twitter, he's always making me laugh. And I'm a big fan of Phil. Well, what I'm saying though is that like it feels so great. But what I'm saying is that all you're doing is showing people how expendable Cleveland State is and how easy it is that even the super fan doesn't cares so little that he's willing to stop his season tickets. You just showed everybody in Cleveland how unimportant Cleveland State is with that move right there. I thought it was straight up Bush League for somebody who cares so much about the program that you're willing to travel to Northern Kentucky, which granted you're basically in the same state, but you're on opposite ends of it. All you're saying is what you care about isn't important. Nobody's going to hear what you want them to hear about Gary Waters or about recruiting or about support from the university. There's nobody's going to hear that. All they're going to hear is that, the super fan didn't renew his season tickets. Man, CSU is on such a downturn that even the guy who will watch Cleveland State basketball normally won't even stick around. So what is it to Joe Blow, who lives who lives on the outskirts of town and maybe went to Cleveland State? What does it say to them? Or what does it say to, some of the students that are there right now that maybe happen upon that? Because I'll be honest, I had a lot of people that were like, oh, hey, did you hear that the Cleveland State super fan, that Prockel's not going to games anymore? You season tickets? Yeah, I heard.
Well,
I heard, and
I will say this, by the way, that particular article no longer exists. Period. It doesn't. I will tell you that much right now. Yeah, it doesn't exist on the internet anymore because the Cleveland Leader, as you may know, is no longer publishing. So, to me,
what was the Cleveland? Was that an actual like physical paper?
No. It was an online. It was an online media site. It did pretty good for a few years, and then things happen. So that's kind of how it goes. I mean, it's the internet, man. It's things come, things go.
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, the HoriZone definitely got its name from a venture that didn't work out either. We may give something similar a shot in the near future, but like you said, things happen. So
exactly. But to your point, I don't think where we're at right now, it's not even a matter of. To me, I kind of go beyond that whole episode, that whole incident, because to me, I mean, because I'm seeing it all the time. I don't see it from a standpoint of why I think of it as this for two things. First of all, why is one fan so important? I mean, we have so few of them at Cleveland State, and this is where I come out from. And this is something that I have kind of thought of for years, that when you have a fan base, your fan base should not be, more than one guy. Okay. You have some exceptions to the rule, mind you, but overall, if one guy goes, the fandom isn't supposed to go with him. So no matter what the announcement was or whatever was posted or whatever was published, I'm not going to really get on John's case for that. I'm not going to do that because it's not like he's the only person who's ever done. It's not like he's the only person who's ever done it. He may be one of the few people who's done it as publicly as he has done, and obviously he had an accomplice in that being the Cleveland Leader. But it's not something that we're looking at that from a standpoint of, John's gone. Oh dear God, what are we going to do? Because we got way bigger problems than just one guy. And to your other point of the student, and to your other point of the student body, what this one guy has to say, truth be told, as far as social media is concerned, really has no bearing because, I look at this all the time. I'm looking at this all the time, and I've made multiple comments about this, that you have, look at any game day for Cleveland State, and there's only ever a handful of people, tweeting about it. I'm not on Facebook, so I'm looking at Twitter. So, and I'm looking at it from a standpoint of, well, nobody's on there anyway. So what? John tweeted something about him not renewing his tickets. So what? Somebody wrote something about him not renewing his tickets. Nobody's paying attention, and to me, that signifies a much larger problem. An institutional problem, I might add, that goes far beyond whatever John did. I mean, that's all, and to one last thing, and this is actually, to one other thing. And I don't remember when exactly when he decided not to renew his tickets came up. From a financial standpoint, if you are a season ticket holder, and if you're a season ticket holder and two of your games are non-Division I teams, I guess it makes some sort of financial sense not to have to pay full price to go see two non-Division I teams, which Cleveland State had to do this year. I mean, that's I don't want to I don't want to kind of downgrade the loss of the loss of a season ticket holder. Cleveland State doesn't have that many, but what is the solution to keeping them into the fold? I think what they were trying to do and I think that the answer that they seem to have is the games at Quicken Loans Arena. That's apparently kind of the incentive to try to hook them back.
Is that
It hadn't worked.
Are those Quicken Loans Arena? Doesn't that seem like more like maybe the people with the Cavs are just really better at promoting basketball, and that maybe we can have their help to really promote the product?
I don't know. Because as I mentioned last week, if I understand it correctly, the Quicken Loans Arena Cavs holding company, Len Komorowski, who's the president of that whole shebang, the agreement was to get for Quicken Loans Arena to handle the sales and marketing of the games for both Quicken Loans Arena and all events at the Wolstein Center now. That's my understanding. And so what has transpired after that time, it remains a mystery to me, especially when I know, and I actually know, the way that sales and marketing machine, how really, 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 good that team is. And what does it say that one of the best sales and marketing teams in the city can't sell Cleveland State? And maybe it doesn't mean anything. I don't know. Maybe it's maybe they are understanding what many others have tried to attempt before. This is probably obviously this may be the most ambitious thing, but still.
I don't know. I don't buy that Cleveland State is unsellable.
It's not. I mean, and that's the other thing too. And it's not as if there is. It's not that as if there is not an audience to tap. I mean, if there wasn't an audience to tap, Cedar Point would not be wanting to. Would not even bother with them, because they're the primary sponsor for the television games. There's a lot of holdover sponsors still. I mean, they're there. I mean, they're there. They can see the value of it. I can see the value of it. And the problem is the people that you would want to have see the value of it, they're not there. They don't exist. And then they turn around and look at then you get into the turn around and look at the actual product. And it's obviously not great this year. It's not doing very well. It's a long, slow, painful process. And I think of it as getting in on the ground floor, but I'm clearly in the minority on that one.
I think what we need to keep in mind is that everybody who listens to this that's a Cleveland State fan, and this applies to all the other
we probably pissed
schools.
off like all of them. So.
Well, it's okay.
Nice seeing you guys.
But everybody who's a fan of any one of these HoriZone League programs, you all care. You care about the program, and you want to not have to have, be the only fans at these games. You want to have more people there, and Wright State benefits from there not being a whole lot to do in Fairborn, Ohio. In the Dayton area to begin with. So Wright State's always going to have, fairly decent attendance. And, whether we're talking about Milwaukee or UIC or Cleveland State or Youngstown State, what has to happen is that you have to, the programs have to be sold. And I've seen this at Milwaukee, and I've seen this at other schools by looking at their marketing stuff. I think that a lot of people who come into marketing at mid-major universities kind of look at it like being a mini high major, where this high major has – we should treat marketing like we would if we were at a mini high major, being we'll do the same exact thing that you do for marketing a high major, except for the mid major, we just won't have enough money to do it. So we'll pick and choose some smaller things, where we can spread out, we can figure out where to use our money better. And I think that's the wrong approach. I think the right approach to marketing these programs is getting down on a real personal level with these people. Mm-hmm. I bring up Steve Fisher. So Steve Fisher was the head coach at Michigan.
He had San Diego State, right?
He was an interim head coach at Michigan and won the national title in '89. He became they got their interim tag ripped off for obvious reasons. took Michigan basketball, recruited the Fab Five, had Perry Watson as an assistant, who then was at Detroit forever.
Had Mike Boyd too, who was at Cleveland State for not as much time.
Yeah, so the Michigan people, and as well as what's his face from. There was a guy at UIC who was one of the assistants for the Fab Five Michigan team.
Not Jimmy Collins, was it?
No, not Jimmy Collins. Jimmy Collins was at Illinois.
Yeah.
In the Fab Five time.
Yeah.
But with UIC had an assistant last year under Howard Moore, who was an assistant, or he might have been a Dobo or something for the Fab Five team. But so Steve Fisher left after the Fab Five got all their stuff vacated. He ended up not being able to recruit after that because of all the sanctions and the stigma surrounding the program. So he ended up flaming out. And there was a new athletic director at San Diego State at the time. This is about 2000, 2001. And he was hiring his first head coach for men's basketball. And he had been at Michigan with Steve Fisher. So he called Steve Fisher. Fisher hemmed and hawed about it. Do I want to go and do I want to pick up my kids? Because the kids were all like about, in their early teens or around 10. He's like, do I want to pick up my family and move them, at this point in their lives, cross country for what is most definitely a reclamation project. And that project is definitely, it was San Diego State. And you get a lot of people that will think of San Diego State now, and it's not what that program was.
No.
When Steve Fisher and that AD first came in, they were averaging about 1,000 fans a game. You're talking about what? You're talking about Cleveland State. You're talking about less fans than are put together at all these schools, Milwaukee, UIC, even Youngstown State technically gets more fans at games than San Diego State was when Steve Fisher took over as coach. And what made it different was that Steve Fisher and that athletic director spent the first year putting together a team, yes, but they went out into the community, the two of them. They went out into the community. They went into the dorms. They went into classrooms. They went into lecture halls. They went into coffee shops by campus. They went all over the place. They were everywhere, and they were connecting on a personal level. And the message was the same. We want to build San Diego State into a power program, and we want you to be a part of it. We need all hands on deck. So Steve Fisher, you can imagine a guy like Steve Fisher, a basketball coach with a national title in his hands, walking into a Starbucks and sitting down and talking to whoever will listen. Basketball is a sport that a lot of people like. A lot of people love basketball. There's a reason that people, pack the Value City Arena. There's a reason that people pack certain places. Just because other arenas, it's because the sport itself, basketball, is fantastic, and these schools, at these schools, that is the representative of the basketball of that sport. So Steve Fisher was able to really put it together and get people interested in San Diego State by connecting with them on a personal level. And I feel like in our conference, we really haven't done that.
No.
Butler had the benefit of being the best college in town in Indianapolis. A lot of us have problems with that. There's no NBA team in Dayton, so the Dayton Flyers are the de facto number one basketball team. So Wright State is the number two. In Milwaukee, we've got the Bucks, and then we've got Marquette on top of us. Cleveland State, you have the Cavs, but it's LeBron. You have.
Well, here's to your point of that. And now keep in mind, too, that, again, but there was 4 years he wasn't here. And more to the point, there was a time where the Cavs weren't great. This was 2010, 2011. You're talking even pre-Kyrie Irving. So you have 2010, 2011, where you have Norris Cole's last year. And then 2011, 2012, you remember that they had the first year of the strike, too. I mean, the strike was pretty much, all encompassing. I think they didn't start playing until what, January or something?
Yeah.
So, and again, this kind of goes back to, to your point of, just being a basketball fan, what does it say? I mean, when there is basketball presented to you, and this is in 2010, 2011, and 2011, 2012. These were two NIT teams that Cleveland State had. What does it say when you have, and they did very, very well at the Wolstein Center for those 2 years. So what does it say from a pure basketball standpoint? That you have this basketball team who does very well at home, in college, a college team that does very well at home, and you don't have either a good basketball team in the Cavs or no basketball at all during the strike. What does it say that you still don't want to go to this team? Unless, of course, Valpo or Butler is playing.
I mean, how many people would you get if for like a Valpo game at Cleveland State?
This year, I don't know. That's also at the Quicken Loans Arena, by the way.
What is it? What has it been in the past?
It depends. I think we got about. I think last year. I think it was. Last year, I cannot remember. I think it was. Last year was probably. I think it was 4,500, 5,000 for that game. I think.
Really?
I think. Well, no, and this is another thing too, and this is also when the other argument is that you don't get enough big teams coming in, blah 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 blah. West Virginia came in 2000 during the 2009-2010 season. 5,000 people showed up to that game. Again, to that game. So when we talk about, well, we don't play anybody, we don't play anybody big at the Wolstein Center. Well, yeah, when we did, even then they didn't really, even then there wasn't really,
Well, to be sure, when I'm talking about getting people out for games, you start about 1,000 people. Well, that's about what you're averaging or so, truthfully. You start there and you build. You build to where you're good, and you've built up to 3,000 fans. So you get about 3,000 fans in the building when you're having the best season.
Oh no, I was way off, by the way. 3,171 was the attendance for Cleveland State Valpo last year. Okay. And that was a battle for first place in the conference.
So you get the people in town. You get the people to the games, they enjoy themselves. And you get them to you build upon it. You build it to where the point where you're averaging that 3,000 a year. Maybe it's a year after an NCAA tournament year or something. Or maybe you just do a really good job of marketing the program and you get 3,000 out.
No, wait, I'm sorry. I was looking at 14. I'm sorry. I was looking at 14. I was looking at the 13, 14. My mistake. That was completely different. It was because they lost 56-53, and it was this time around. I'm sorry. I said 31-71. That was 14-15. 41-33 was last year. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, you take that into consideration. But you also take into consideration the Wolstein Center, that even with that curtain up, it's still 8,500 seats.
Well, the curtain is just another reminder that Cleveland State doesn't fill its own building.
And it's also a reminder that nobody within the administration has any clue what to do with that building. None whatsoever. It's like an annual argument. So
if there were 4,000 seats or 5,000 seats, I think you'd be in pretty good shape.
All right, let's wrap this up then. All right, so that should about wrap it up for us. We got a little far afield on the whole Cleveland State thing that you knew eventually it was going to happen. I was hoping it wasn't going to be episode 3, but whatever. Sorry, rest of the Horizon League. You knew this was coming at some point in time.
Well, it's okay. I mean, it's worth talking about. I mean, this is it's a show about all the Horizon League teams. So I think we have to talk about ourselves, at least somewhat. And I think a lesson that the rest of the Horizon League can take, the rest, and these are fans mostly that are talking, is that you got to support what you have, no matter what kind of team you guys put on the court, because if you guys aren't supporting it, then nobody's supporting it.
And more to the point, students, it's your money. You're subsidizing this.
Yeah, especially at Cleveland State.
Yeah, $11 million. Go see everything. Yes, do that.
It's an incredible amount of money.
You think?
In fact, I had an idea maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. I tried sharing it with athletics, and it kind of got shouted down. My idea was that we should give freshmen a pack of either season tickets or vouchers for season tickets that show on there that you have spent this money to support this athletic program specifically for these tickets. So how much does a student spend every year on athletics in segregated fees? What's the cost to a student, Bob?
I don't know.
All right, at Milwaukee, including the basketball practice facility fee, as well as the athletics facilities fee, and the regular athletics segregated fee. It's about $140 per semester per full-time student that goes towards athletics. If we have 14 home games in a year, that's $10 a ticket. So I would put down a voucher on there. I would say your money has already gone to these season tickets. How about you show up for these games? This is your voucher to get into a game free. And these freshmen won't know that they're already going to be getting into the games free. So when you give them the voucher, maybe they won't question it. Maybe they will, and somebody will tell them, well, games have always been free, and then you're out of luck. But perhaps, maybe, just maybe, you'll get to the point where they will take what they have seriously. They'll take their athletics fee seriously.
I'm not so sure, but it's worth a shot. So
it was just an idea that I had, and it got shouted down. But the idea is that you give them a physical piece of paper or a physical, not a ticket, because I hear there's like some, at least for us, there's some actual costs with tickets, not just regular paper, but showing them physically that they spend $140 a semester on basketball. So here's your ticket to prove that.
Yeah. So
here's your $10 per ticket. If you don't use it, that's a waste of $10. And you're just going to do that all the time. There's no refunds because it's part of your student fees, but here you go.
All right. Well,
so there's just an idea. I'd love to put together a lot of things, but to see what we can all do to better attendance. But really what I just want to say to everybody as we wrap up is that support your team and don't stop bringing your friends to games. Don't stop bringing your family to games just because you're having a down year. The down year is when they need you the most, because if you're gone, then everybody's gone and you're starting from square one. And then when you come back, it's not going to be what you want it to be. So please, by all means, no matter what the season looks like, keep coming to games, because without you, these programs are lost. So make sure that you always support the program, because you are the program. Coaches, administrators, players, they are all stewards of your program. At the end of the day, it's still your program. So own it. It's your program. You are the owners of it. So that's all I wanted to say on that. And I figure that's a good enough spot as I need to wrap it up.
We'll be back next week. As always, come see us on 4lights.fm. Click on our shows. Bunch of great shows over there. Find us on iTunes, TuneIn, and Stitcher.
I'm a huge fan of the SEC football show, by the way. The SEC show is fantastic.
Those guys will be extremely happy to hear that. SEC 411, another one of the 4 Lights FM podcasts. Go check it out. And, of course, you got to keep checking our stuff out. So,
And make sure when you see Bob or myself tweet about it, RT it, retweet that stuff, and get that stuff out there so people will see it and people will subscribe, because the more subscribers we have, the more we're going to be able to put into the business. So please subscribe, help us out, and help out your own programs too. So thanks for listening.
And there's always a hope that I'll be less of a jackass in future episodes. So keep that up.
I don't know if there's much hope for that.
Probably not. So, all right. Well, we'll wrap this up, and we'll see you guys. We'll see everybody next week.